The alums will be honoring Mr. Smith this weekend, as well as those receiving awards for ambassadorship and also for those being inducted into the Hall of Athletic Honor. So, Mr. Smith, it's all yours.
Bad stories or good stories?
You can do anything you want.
Anything I want?
Okay.
Lori, thanks. So alumni that are here, that scholarship is still open for donations. All right, so we're looking for more, just so you know. Just so you know. It's great to have so many. I still think of them as young men, but now they're old because I'm even older. Yes, yes. You are campus, all right? I'm honored today. I'm honored today and this weekend. Talmadge O'Neill is really a good guy. He has donated hundreds of thousands of dollars to this school. Hundreds of thousands. But more importantly than that, he has co-founded at least 3 companies, I think, Talmadge, right? And a couple of those are some of the fastest growing private companies in the United States and maybe the world. And I think a little Bitcoin investment too, if I'm not mistaken.
2013.
Yeah. There you go. There you go. Talmadge was an honored student here on the honor roll all the time. I believe he was a newspaper editor. And he did this little sport called wrestling and ran track. Yep. And I think you're going to run this weekend, right? Are you going to do an 800?
I ran this morning.
Oh, okay. So we didn't see that. All right. But what's great is he's here and all the alums are here, and you need to appreciate them. Be respectful to them when they're talking today and listen, because you might learn something, because these guys a number of years ago were sitting right here. And they'll have some good stories to share with you. Most of them will be true, I hope. All right? And in ending, it's great to have Talmadge here and everybody, but Talmadge's first business was at the Church Farm School, where he sold sandwiches and pizza out of his room. That started him. So please welcome Talmadge O'Neill.
So, first of all, I just want to say it's great to be back. Particularly for the students who are here now, probably some of you are thinking, boy, I can't wait to be out of here. I can't wait to go to college. I can't wait to get on with my life. But every year is precious. Your moments here, some of them, you won't realize how important they are until years after you're gone. But I hope you'll maintain your relationships with your classmates, the faculty that you enjoyed, and hopefully when you come back, you'll also feel kind of in awe of the place you came from, and you'll understand that it was important to your development. So the reason I give back to Church Farm is really because they gave to me. When I came here, it was like $1,300 a year. It went up by like $100 every year, but that was like less than it would probably cost to feed me. So I in a sense, I got a 6-year scholarship to come here, and it wasn't always easy. It was oftentimes quite tough, but that made me resilient. It made me, it helped to make me who I am today. So I hope in the future you'll appreciate your experience here. So in 10 minutes, I'm going to try to impart some of the things that I've learned in my journey. And again, the caveat is, like, my journey is not necessarily going to be your journey. But I hope that there will be some nuggets in here that you'll find applicable to whatever career you want to do. I'm going to be focused mainly on growth and technology in this presentation, but this could be applicable to being a teacher, service, athletics, a wide variety of things. So with that, I'm going to kick off with what I remember learning about thinking about careers in the time period when I was a high school student and a college student. So at that time, do you guys still read What Color's My Parachute? No? Okay. So apparently this was started being published, I think, in the 70s, and it's still being published today. And it was the book that everybody got. And I think the gist of the book was basically do what makes you passionate. Like, if you're going to go out there and work for 30, 40, 50 years, make sure what you're doing is something you enjoy, and hopefully it doesn't feel like work. And so that was somehow supposed to help me understand like what I was supposed to do, but I had no idea what I had passion for. And then we had this Myers-Briggs personality test, which I think is probably today not really seen as very credible, but it was, again, supposed to kind of identify things about you and your personality and help you to identify where that might be a fit with a good career. So I'm going to tell you something just completely different. So, and by the way, I put my email address on the first page of this, my first name @gmail.com. More than welcome to email me. And as you see me on campus today and tomorrow, don't be shy. Come up, talk to me, ask questions. My role is to listen to whatever your questions are and to try to provide you with some advice. Okay, so here's my kind of advice in 10 minutes. And I'm only going to focus on the top 5 here. But basically, my number one thing is learning never stops. And your ability to kind of understand what is changing in society and to identify what could potentially be important and to get on top of that and to be like one of the top 1,000 or 10,000 people in the world who knows about that subject is really key. The second thing, and it seems obvious in retrospect, but I didn't know this, and I certainly didn't plan my career this way, is find a growth industry and find a company or a position where there's growth opportunity on top of that. You know, if you go and work at retail and retail is flat, well, there's not going to be a lot of job opportunities because they aren't hiring a lot of people. You're not going to get a lot of promotions. There are not new stores being opened, et cetera. But if you join a company that's growing from 100 people to 500 people in a year to 1,000 to 2,000 to 5,000, there are going to be entire departments that are created out of jobs you once did. And you're going to be the old wise person who knows like why we made this decision and how we made this decision. And that's going to be really important. The fourth thing I have on here, and it should be obvious with, I think, the work ethic that hopefully you're developing here at Church Farm is you got to outwork everybody. And by outwork everybody, I mean, I used to interview people for Boston Consulting Group, and that was more of a case study interview. But clearly, there are people where you interview them, and they've obviously shown up for the interview with no preparation, and they think it's like it's incumbent upon the interviewer to kind of tell them why they should be there. And no, it's incumbent upon the interviewee to know everything there is about the company they're interviewing for. Whether it's, you know, how have they been doing financially? Have you read the annual reports? Have you looked at the quarterly reports? You know, have there been changes in the senior management? What do analysts have to say about it? Newspaper reports, et cetera. Particularly with the internet, there's all kinds of information out there. And you just need to work harder and know more about that company or the problems they face or the potential solutions that you might have thought of for them. And then you have to identify how you're going to add value. And that is a daunting thing for somebody who gets out of high school or college and quite frankly doesn't have a lot of experience or wisdom. But I'll talk about 2 things in that where you have a huge advantage that you probably don't know about. Once you're on board, think like an owner. Like if you're in an operation and something's not going well, you can be the guy who goes home at 5 o'clock and you can not worry about it and not care about it. But if you actually think about it as an owner and you say like, what's going on? How can I make it better? And you work and communicate with people in the organization about that, that's going to set you apart from people that are there just to kind of get their paycheck. You know, as a company grows, your role and responsibilities grow. And make friends, like get to know people in each department. Like, what does accounting do? And why is quarterly close so hard? And why are they so stressed at this particular time? What does sales do? What does marketing do? What does PR do? What does HR do? Like, and as you have friends and you know people in these different parts of the organization, you're gonna have a better understanding of what goes on. You're gonna have a better understanding of who to talk to if you see an issue or problem, or you yourself are wondering, like, you know, my role's coming to an end. Is there another role for me in the organization? Set goals and objectives for yourself. It's not just for a company. And your goals and objectives can change over time, but again, don't just kind of go through life as the stream takes you. Like, try to think about what you want to do, and you ultimately are in charge of your own company. You're in charge of your name, LLC. And you've got to do what you got to do to kind of get to where you want to be. And then one thing that we see very frequently is we see a lot of people who change jobs quite often. And I would suggest you don't want to do that. At the same time, you shouldn't stay in an organization longer than you feel that you have growth in. Like, if you get to the point where you're kind of doing the same thing day in and day out, and you're not growing, you're not learning, then it probably is time to move on if you're unable to get the job that enables you to learn. Now I gotta go really fast because I probably got like 5 minutes left. So this is a chart you'll see a lot of, but it's basically product adoption. So they talk about like how long it took people, you know, to go from 10% of the population to 90% of the population having color TVs. And obviously with the internet and with AI, it's going faster and faster. This is a chart which basically shows you for almost, well, basically you always have early folks that, you know, they hop on something very early, and then gradually over time, over that course of that 10 years of adoption, you get kind of to the end. But an interesting example here is only 15% of Americans own cryptocurrency. So we're basically, even after 10 plus years, we're still in the early market of that. And what happens is there's kind of an S-curve where you get to maybe 40% of the population own a color TV, or they're using GPT-3 or 4 or 5 or 10 or whatever it is, or they own Bitcoin. And then all of a sudden the remaining of that adoption curve goes really quickly. You go from 40 to 80 like very quickly. So yeah, be an early adopter. There are lots of different ways you can kind of identify growth industries. One could be like, where are VCs, venture capitalists kind of deploying their money? Here's an example of a chart which kind of indicates between 2017 and now, kind of what are some of the more popular or hot kind of industries, with AI obviously being at the top, but sustainability and energy being very high up there, because we have a lot of in the recent government budgets, there's been a lot of money that has been allocated towards energy self-sufficiency, et cetera. So that's becoming a very hot market. How do you find a company that's rapidly growing? So here's some examples. Y Combinator generates like hundreds of companies a year. It's kind of a pre-venture capital group that helps kick companies off. AngelList, tens of thousands of companies are on AngelList, but that's where you'll find very high growth, very early companies. You can track specific VCs. You want to get the better ones like Sequoia, Excel, et cetera. But you can kind of look at, you know, who have they invested money in. On Twitter or X.com, if you follow the right people, you're going to get very good sources of information. High quality podcasts. That's because I probably listen to an hour or two of podcasts every day. You know, for public companies, there's a lot of public information from the SEC. There's annual reports, quarterly reports. S1 are the reports that companies do before they go public. And there's a lot, there's like 100 pages, and they'll talk about, you know, what are their strengths, what are their weaknesses, what has their growth been across different areas within the company, et cetera. For competitors, this is the first time many of them are seeing this information, so it's a great source of data. And there's many, many others. So learn everything about the company. So yes, you go to the website, but how many people actually buy the product or demo the product if it's a service? How many actually talk to customers? How many actually research the background of the founders or the lead executives, the investors? How many think about it as their business? Like, if this were my business, what would keep me up at night? Who are the competitors? Do a SWOT analysis. Look at job openings. Job openings tell you what they're hiring for, which tells you what their initiatives are. So again, this is a very simple way of setting yourself apart from any other applicant when you're actually interviewing for a job. How do you add value? Well, many of you are not going to have a lot of skills when you leave high school or college, except if you've taken a lot of accounting classes or maybe finance classes or business class. There are, or you're pre-med or something like that. So there are, but if you're general liberal arts, there's not a lot of value you can add. But particularly for early stage companies, your average senior executive who has a lot of work experience is not leaving their cushy job to go work at some crazy startup that probably won't work. The startup is really looking for people who are energetic, believe in the vision, want to add value any way they can, are hardworking, committed, and have actually done the research on the company and said, like, this is really where I want to work. So there is an opportunity to demonstrate how you add value. And if you're in an early company that grows very rapidly, you're going to learn so much. You're going to learn more in a year than you would learn probably 5 years of the big company. So those are kind of, I'm only going to focus on the kind of the 5 of the 10. This illustrates, so Facebook went public, I think, in 2012, 4,600 employees. Even with the recent job cuts, they're at 67,000 employees today. So even if you joined a company like Facebook at the IPO, you would have been one of the first 10% of the employees there. And if you're still there, you've probably made a ton of money on your stock options, or you have the opportunity to manage probably a huge team, have huge responsibilities, have huge growth that you would have never imagined. Like, you probably would have gotten out of college in like 2010 to start in 2012. And it doesn't have to just be engineering. There's sales, there's marketing, there's account management, there's facilities management, there's all kinds of job opportunities. So my general conclusion is a rising tide lifts all boats. So if you are in the right industry and then you're in the right company, you've got the tide behind you. And then if you have good work ethic and you care and you're passionate, you want to learn, you're helpful to other people, you're easy to work with, you're going to do fantastic. Skate to where the puck is, like see where the opportunity is and kind of move to it. As I said, 95% of the job applicants really don't do the work and don't do the research. Art Smith ingrained in us the no pain, no gain, and that is true of life in general, right? If you work hard, if you don't work hard and you don't go through some pain, you're probably not going to get the gain. And the early employees basically they get disproportionate benefit. And then with experience, whether it's 10 years or 15 years, you start to develop patterns and you begin to identify either problems that you know how to solve, or you identify companies that are going to make it or not make it, and it gets much easier. I will confess that it took me at least 10 years post-Church Farm to kind of get confidence and get into a job situation where I felt like I knew what I was doing, I could add value, I felt comfortable with the people I was working. So it's going to take time. Your 20s are not going to be easy. But again, with planning and thinking and trying to identify where the opportunities are, it could go much faster for you than it went for me. Here is just, again, and the deck will be available to anybody who wants it. Lori can give it to them. Here is just, for example, some podcasts that I listen to that are mostly business focused. But in fact, one of my classmates was saying, "Oh yeah, I listened to that acquired based on your recommendation." So with that, I'll open it up for questions, and then Lori or Art, you're going to have to cut me off when you have to move on, because I know I've gone over 10 minutes. Thank you. No questions? Okay, well, come and see me over the next 2 days if you do have any questions.
Thanks so much, Talmadge. All right, for any of the panelists, if you could raise your hand and then you could sort of, or any of the moderators, please raise your hand and the panelists can follow. So Tiffany Scott is right here. Tiffany is going to be going to the Bissell Center for Creators. So any panelist, please go with Ms. Scott, and 9th grade, you are free to go with Ms. Scott as well. Mr. McHale.